Hey, I'm Dahlia.
And I'm Alma. This is Nightmare on Fifth Street, a horror movie podcast.
Did you hear of the nightmare on Fifth Street? Did you hear of the nightmare on Fifth Street? Did you hear of the nightmare on Fifth Street?
Okay, y'all. Today I am so excited. We have a very special guest. I'm just gonna stop talking because I can just gush for like so long before we actually get into the conversation. But Alma, can you please introduce our guest for today?
Today we have with us Kay Lynch. Yay! Applause. Insert applause here.
Hello.
Hi, and welcome to our podcast. We're so excited to have you. We've had the pleasure of meeting you in person.
Yeah,
I was so excited
fun.
for that moment. I don't know if you remember that, but I was all like,
Of
"Oh my god!"
we more than met. You helped us.
Oh yeah, we did that, but it was kind of like the second side piece to meeting you in person. Everything. I have a bio to read for you. I'm going to go ahead and do that for our guests in case you all haven't met Kay.
And shame on you if you don't know.
Kay Lynch is the founder director of Salem Horror Fest, independent film producer and event producer for the George A. Romero Foundation. She has produced and promoted hundreds of events in the art, queer, and horror communities all over the world and supported hundreds of independent filmmakers, reaching global audiences. Headquartered in Salem, Massachusetts, she has launched numerous businesses, organizations, and projects, including a co-working office space, original rock horror show, that is awesome, city council campaign, recycling PSA's teen media program, and a property photography business. She was the director of marketing for Manhunt, Jacked, and various adult entertainment platforms, held marketing and PR positions at North Shore Music Theater, Shaolin Liu Performance Center, Salem State University, and has worked with hundreds of notable figures, including Elvira, which is wow, Joe Dante, Elizabeth Warren, Barney Frank, DeRay McKesson, and Sharon Needles.
Okay, Kay, do you sleep?
Yes, upside down, hanging from the ceiling.
I love that. Oh my God. So you are so young and you have done and are doing so much. That is amazing. I love it. Let's talk a little bit. We met you at Salem Horror Fest. That's where we first originally met you. What led you to create that? I mean, you live in Salem. I'm guessing you live in Salem.
So Salem is the Halloween capital of the world. So it is, a perfect place to celebrate. And I've been doing events for almost 20 years now. I started out in theater, and then I got into marketing and advertising and promotion of events. And I had a corporate job for a few years and near Boston, and I just was not for me. So I had to get out of there. And when I did, obviously I had to figure out what was next. And it was 2016, right around the election. And when everything went down, it was pretty traumatic, and everyone was really upset, angry, sad. And so I really wanted to do something, like whatever I could do. But as someone with an events and marketing background, there's only, I'm not going to save the world. But I thought, well, maybe there's something productive I can do with my experience. And so when I started the festival, the idea was to take the horror genre as it's traditionally done to be a cultural reflection of like our societal anxieties and fears, and start conversations about what the concept of fear can do to us individually and as a group. So obviously tying it into the history of Salem and everything that happened in 1692. So I wanted to take that approach and bring it to a fun experience, as it is every October in Salem, and try to blend the high art and the low art together and offer people who are looking for more than just, the thrills. We certainly have that. And, but, people who are a little more intellectually curious or are academically minded, we wanted to create programs that would sort of, satisfy people who want to dig deeper.
So, okay, so this is how I found you. I found you online on Twitter, and that's how I discovered Salem Horror Fest. Now, you took on this feat of putting on this horror festival in the middle of a pandemic. And that's how I found you. And now we don't have to get into your politics, but it was your outspokenness on your social media that immediately attracted me to you and to Salem Horror Fest. And I'm like, this is my girl right here, because you were not shy. You didn't give a shit about anybody else. You're like, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm doing. Fuck you if you don't like it. I don't really fucking care. At least that's how I read it. And so that really, that's what made me want to, even if it was just a little piece of volunteering, I wanted to be a part of that. And that more so than the other big festivals that are going on. Yours, I didn't hesitate to say, Alma, we're going to do this. Okay.
Yeah. And I just jumped on board. It's an experience. Like, you were saying, I was like, it's to get in and just be a little part of that, everything about it, the films. I love that you had so much engagement with people, and it just seemed like, how are you getting it all done? It was just really in awe to watch. Just every little bit, every little aspect, and how much respect people had for you, and the air you had about you. It's just a beautiful experience for me. Sorry, I didn't mean to get out like that, but it was wonderful and exciting for us. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was so sweet. I really appreciate that. And so I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I'm in charge of this little thing. And so, no one can fire me. So, I'm able to be as outspoken as I want. And of course, there's this sort of preconceived notion that it's bad for business to be vocal about your politics. But as a queer person, I haven't always felt welcome in a lot of spaces, including horror spaces. So I wanted to make sure that we created a space that was very clearly going to signal to people that it's a safe space for anyone who hasn't felt welcome at certain events or spaces. And so that was really important from the start, and knowing how intense everything was with the previous administration and how worried people were, myself included. There was something that was happening at the time, was that every day something more crazy was happening. And because there's an incentive not to be vocal about your politics, you're afraid you're going to lose money. You're afraid like your business is going to lose money, or you might lose your job, or, there's all these things. Nonprofits can't be vocal about politics unless they have a specific political organization based on certain issues. Otherwise, they could lose their funding and 503 status. So there are all these things that dissuade people from doing it. And so as things were getting crazier and crazier and just more and more outrageous, it felt like no one was really like acknowledging how crazy everything was. And what that does is, it's gaslighting. And how I felt was that I felt like I was going crazy. I'm like, is anyone else seeing this? Like, can we please talk about this? This is not right. This is not normal. What are we going to do about it? And of course, over time, people became more like desensitized to these sort of things. So I knew that obviously I'm vocal about my politics, but I also knew that I had to be aggressive about it, because I wanted to signal to people that sort of like confirm this is not right. This is not normal, because I knew that I would be one of the few voices out there doing that. and it's something that I needed to hear, and I knew others did too. So that was a big part of why I really like stepped on the gas with it. It also demonstrates that it's not just talk. You know what I mean? Like I really do mean it. It is really important to me, and for that to be so, I have to be angry and aggressive about it, because that's how I feel, and people aren't going to feel welcome if they don't feel like the reality is being acknowledged. And so also Salem, its history, there are witch hunts come in many different forms. So it was also sort of like a natural connection to our history and talking about how fear is used politically. And
you said it perfectly. It's like a witch hunt. I don't know why it never dawned on me. Yeah, exactly. Now, I brought my child with me to Salem Horror Fest, Salem. Mm-hmm. They were really excited. And I'm not going to tell their story because it's their story to tell. I just want to say, though, that they're 19 years old. And when I told them that I was recording with you tonight, they looked at me like, and their face just lit up. And I was just like, Camille, I've done an episode. We've done an episode with them here, and then we're going to do another one. But they just looked at me like, So I just thought that was really cool. But they looked up to you and thought it was a really cool thing. So I just wanted to, share that little piece about them.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, hello, Camille. Is that what you said their name is? Oh, hello, Camille.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Salem.
Oh, yeah, they loved it. I also want to mention that, okay, so you have a whole bunch going on. It's really interesting. I don't know if you ever, I know you're very involved in, like you said, a lot of events and everything. So I hopped onto your Twitter feed like about a couple of hours ago to make sure that I was up to date and made sure I had everything, all my bases covered, because Alma knows I way over researched the shit out of people beforehand. And I'm reading your timeline. And it's like, did you ever keep a blog when you were, it's basically like a blog. And I love this. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish that I, like, even just right now speaking with you, you have a way with your words that really, a lot of people are passionate, and I can see it and I can feel it. But with you, not only can I see it and I feel it, but I hear it, and that's why, again, I won't speak for Alma, but I was really excited about talking to you tonight because we're going to be talking about this movie. Alma's going to go into a little bit more about the movie, but Carnival of Souls, which Alma wants to call Carnival of Souls.
Well, then by all means.
But there's so much. I was telling Alma that this movie I've watched a couple of times in the past, and I loved it, obviously. Now at where I am in my stage of life now, and with things going on, here in Texas, in my life and everywhere, it's funny how, I don't know if this happens with UK when you rewatch movies, but it hit me different when I rewatched it for this episode. And so that's why I'm really excited about talking about it. But do you find that when you rewatch a movie, like maybe many years later, you said this is one of your favorite movies, so I'm sure you watch it a lot, that it hits you different depending on what's going on in your life or what stage in your life you are?
Absolutely. I mean, that's no matter when you're watching a film, I mean, it could be a certain period of your life, or it could just be the day of the week, and depending on what you're going through, affects our perspective and how we perceive everything, the world around us, and of course the art that we consume. The more that I watch it, the more I discover, the more life experience I gain, the wider the opportunities for me to look at things in different ways. And that's one of the big things that I love about horror, is that you really can approach it from different angles, and whether or not it was the artist's intent, you can still walk away with some really interesting observations that reflect the time that the film itself was made, and you bring your own experience, and together you can take away so many things. And so Carnival of Souls for me is like a comfort watch for a lot of reasons, but I just think that based on the surface level, it's just a sort of dreamy, subdued story that is full of dream logic, so it's not really heavy on plot, and you can kind of get lost in it, and it's kind of this down tempo vibe to it. I've always had this thing for music. I always say that the music I listen to most is music that you could both dance and or sleep to, which doesn't really sound like it makes sense, but it's like low energy at a like propelling force, and that's what I feel Carnival of Souls is.
Yeah. Well, I like that you said that it's not big on plot, and I think that's a conversation that I was just having with Alma before we started recording, because and that's probably why you can get different things from it depending on where you are in your like you said, even the day of the week, depending on what your mood is, because you can insert this here, insert that there. Oh, look at that. I'm definitely feeling that. But the music, the mood, oh my God, I love the organ, first of all. And
the music was just, I played it while I was just walking around, and sometimes just leave it in the background so I can listen to the music. And it's just, I find it peaceful, but at the same time kind of haunting, but that's just kind of like a mood that I enjoy. Like a little bit of it's just like a dream-like kind of state that I feel the whole movie is in. And I know a lot of people I'm one of them who sometimes it's like, oh, we're reading too much into this. But a lot of film, especially this one, I find that there's a lot of art, there's a lot of film that is just asking you to interpret it in your own way for you, because with the not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of plot. It's so, I said, like, it's so in your face, telling you, how are you seeing this? How is it reflecting in you? How are you viewing it? And that's why I like this one. It's a movie. Okay, so I guess we should just start talking about what we're talking about.
Let's jump in.
Okay. So we watched Carnival of Souls, and I say it like that all the time. Dolly was like, Carnival just happened. And I was like, I always say Carnival. It's from 1962. It's currently on Shudder. Directed by Herc Harvey and written by John Clifford, adapted from a story by both Harvey and Clifford. Starring Candice Hilligoss as Mary Henry, Art Ellison as the minister, Frances Feist as Mrs. Thomas, the landlady, Sidney Berger as John Linden, or the creep, Stan Levitt as Dr. Samuels, Herc Harvey as the man. Should I go ahead and just give a quick summary for anybody?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, which is how, but it's okay. Watch it. After a traumatic car accident, a woman relocates to take a position as a church organist. She becomes desensitized and seeks isolation from the world, only to be dogged by the mysterious presence of a phantom man that only she can see, as she is increasingly drawn to the abandoned pavilion of a carnival in the outskirts of town.
Okay, Kay, when did you first watch this movie? Do you remember?
Well, when I first watched it in its entirety, it was like, I don't know, 4 years ago or so. It's available on Criterion and both streaming and on disc, and I really want to have all the horror titles, the horror Criterion disc, so it was one that I picked up. So I was somewhat familiar with it because the film is a public domain, and like Night of the Living Dead, it's one of those films that is often used in the background of other movies because they don't have to pay the rights for it. And TV shows, it's also the type of film that you could catch on your local cable access channel. Again, they don't have to pay to show that film. So it has kind of been a little bit of like cinematic wallpaper throughout my life. And I imagine, many people, the film's from 1962, so it's been around for a while. So I've sort of, through cultural osmosis, have had a relationship with this film, but it wasn't until a few years ago that I actually got to watch it in its entirety and kind of really absorb a lot of the messages and just the mood, like you said, the mood and the experience. It
starts off with a vehicle accident. Unfortunately,
drag racing. I love that.
Oh my God, yes, thank you.
dudes pull up to these three women sitting in a car, and they're like, "You want to drag?" And it's like, yeah, I love that. The opening scene is so amazing to me because it was supposed to be like three women drag racing against three of their peers of the male side.
I
And
love that. Yes,
so
absolutely. That was
Mhm.
great.
that, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Like the driver is like holding the cigarette in her hand. She's like, I'm doing this. And with the bridge. So I was like already just kind of like pulled in like this. It's different. The crisp black and white, just the time, get yourself into the 60s vibe, everybody. And it was just great to see that. And right away, it's just like, it's like pulling you in. And
Do
so
you feel like the black and white, the choice to do black and white added to this? Because for me, it did.
yeah.
Doing this in black and white, just imagine it if I know it's been colorized. I'm pretty sure it has, right? Did I see that
Yeah.
correctly? Yeah, I haven't. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't see that because I feel like the black and white sucks you in,
Mhm.
especially because, like you said, Kay, with the dreaminess of the whole, and it starts off from the beginning. As soon as they do the whole, the drag racing, and then there's a point. Alma knows I'm bad with names, so I apologize. I'm always going to forget everybody's name, but the lady, when she's the passenger and she looks over, it's from that moment for me, it's like she started being kind of like a voyeur. It's like the rest of the movie takes on a voyeur's point of view. So she's a passenger, she's watching everything go down, and as the movie progresses, sometimes she is the object of a voyeur, or she's looking around. So from that moment on, so I just love the fact that it was black and white, and then they show this kind of like where she's watching, and then people are watching her, and it's just always I'm always very aware of the watching through the rest of the movie.
Oh, I was just going to say her eyes. It's like really a focus a lot on the screen is her big, beautiful eyes. And I'm just watching where they're going. What are they doing? How is she feeling? Kind of like that's the main attraction a lot on the screen.
Yeah. So much of the film shows Mary being a passenger in her own life. So obviously, like you said in the beginning, and the entire film from that point on, she's just kind of falling into situation after situation. And then even towards the end, where she's getting the car fixed, and they like crank her up in the car. She wants to stay in the car while they work on it, and she's just sitting in the or she's sitting in the driver's seat in that case, but with no control of her vehicle. And so I think that's very much what the film is getting at. And it's also the moment where she goes over the bridge is kind of like a Alice in Wonderland down the rabbit hole kind of thing. It's this catalyst that brings her into this whole other world.
I think you described it perfectly right there, Alice in Wonderland. I hadn't thought of it like that before, but you're exactly right, because that's when it all went down. And also you said, yeah, she's been just this passenger in her life. Like even when the accident happened, she was a passenger. And then when we get to the ending, yeah, was she ever in control of anything that was going on in her life? So yeah, her friends pass away, and then she moves on to Utah. I've never been to Utah. I hear it's beautiful out there. But anyway, so we come to this scene, and I want to say real quick though, I saw it described like this movie. I can't remember the exact words that were used, but basically kind of like I think it was like a precursor or something like that to George A. Romero something. I can't remember. And I don't know. Yeah, so I'm thinking when I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm getting a little bit of amusement park vibe here during some of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I love that. It's just like, oh my goodness. Yes. Because amusement park, if y'all haven't watched this yet, listeners, it's very different. It's so different. And I love it because that too hits me on a different note there too. But we're talking about this movie right now. So I'll get back.
So what's interesting about that connection is, one, Romero has, stated, and it's fairly obvious in the film, Night of the Living Dead, that he was very much inspired by Carnival of Souls, and both him and Herc Harvey, the director of this film, were they made industrial films and like had commercial production companies, their own companies where they would make. Well, in Romero's case, he was just basically like a production crew for hire, and Herc Harvey made those films that would like teach you about the dangers of drugs and reckless driving or not using machinery properly or having good manners, and there was these like whole series of educational films that would get sold to schools, and he made a career out of that. Carnival of Souls was his only feature they actually made, which is a shame, but he's made hundreds of other industrial films, and Romero's done the same. He went to do a lot more features, but a really interesting connection is that Herc Harvey's last project was a segment that he did for Reading Rainbow.
I didn't know that.
Romero had done an episode, or at least a segment, on Mr. Rogers. So I love that
I absolutely love that. How did I not know this? I am a fan of both of those shows, and I did not know this. What the heck?
Well, they both have a zillion episodes. So.
Yeah, true. That is so cool.
Romero one specifically was when Mr. Rogers went to the dentist. Is the one he did.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have
I made that scary in my head.
Aren't you going to the dentist here in a couple of weeks, Alan?
Oh, yeah, I am.
That's great. Remember that.
Oh, I was just going to say the amusement park itself was an industrial film. George Romero was hired to make a film about elderly abuse and to kind of drive up awareness and empathy for the issue. And he clearly understood the assignment because it was the Lutheran church that commissioned it. And so once he turned it in, they were like, we can't show this. Are you crazy? It's too disturbing.
I love that.
Do you know who you hired? Like,
I absolutely love that.
In both films, in Carnival of Souls and the amusement park, there are obvious connections there, but they both feature a protagonist who are just like whisked away in this scenario that they have no control over, and they are both at the end of their lives. This is like the veil between the living and the dead.
And this is why I love this movie so much, because it's just screaming of a time that we're still seeing now. I feel like just having to do what you're forced into, just not feeling like you belong and trying to find a place for yourself, but being told you should do this or that. And it's just astonishing to me that it's been so many years and we're still like that at times, and a lot, and so many of us. So originally seeing it, I found it so depressing that I couldn't watch it for a long time. I was just like, this is depressed to me. I watched this film. It wasn't what I expected, which happens to me because Ali knows I don't read about movies before I watch them. I just watch them. And so it really like put me in a mood watching her. And there were so many points in the movie that I felt like Mary, that I'm like, but this is years later. I mean, I wasn't, weren't even born in this time. How can it be that we still feel this same way for this woman in 1962? At first, okay, so we have her, she takes that job as an organist, and which I think is the freaking coolest thing ever. The music is just badass. I don't know why I found it that way. Recently, my kid who plays the piano discovered the organ setting on her piano, so she played everything in church organist mode, and everything's like, where is that coming from? Just kind of frightens me. But
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. And I love it that she is not a member of the church. She's not part of it. She's being told by the organ factory guy. She's being told by the minister, you're welcome to come to the church. So she's like, no. And I love that at point she asserts her assertiveness. I don't know a better way to say that, but she's being very assertive, almost putting her foot down like, no, I'm playing the music. I'm not coming to the church social. It's okay if they talk about me behind my back, kind of. If they love my music, that's all that they need to know about me. So it's just kind of says a lot about her character, because she is trying to be that person. She moved here for isolation. She's moving here to be a part of the world, but in her own.
She's a nonconformist, like, and I love that about her.
She wants to have it quiet, you know.
Yeah. As far as she's concerned, or as far as she's aware, that a near-death experience. And the first thing she does, she's like, well, shit, I got to get to work.
She just went on with what needed to get done. And like you said, let's keep moving forward. There's a part in the movie too, where she talks about how, like, she's not interested in dating anyone. And again, I may be reading too much into anything, but she never really says like, oh, I'm not dating any guys right now or anything like that. Just like, I'm not dating anyone. You know, I'm not interested in being with someone or anyone. It's very just general like that. And I like that. And not only because it seemed very like maybe gender neutral, like she's not being specific, but also because she's like, I'm not interested in it right now. Although it did make me sad when we had her neighbor at the boarding house that keeps bothering her. Oh, it's so gross. Unfortunately, as women, we all know that gaze and everything, that's just, and we see that happen. That's another part of where I was noticing this voyeuristic type of atmosphere where she's being just looked at, but this guy is making advances at her, and she's no. And then the sad part for me was when she kept getting creeped out by, we see something that's following her. A man keeps following her. She keeps seeing him. She's the only one that sees him. Is he a ghost? Is he a real person? What's going on here? She's scared, obviously. I mean, I would be scared too. And then that's when she felt like she was forced to, have to put up with this guy's company. And that, I think that's where I said, like, I depending on where I have been in my life, like, I didn't really read too much into that part. I was like fixating on other parts, before. And then right now, like, I guess right now in my stage of life, when I was looking at that, I was like, that was heartbreaking, where she felt she was put in a position where she was scared. She felt lonely, whatever it was. And she had to put up with this. She had to put up with his words, the way he treated her. Before, when she was being, like Alma said, very assertive, and she was, this is how, I don't have to do this. I don't want to do that. She was allowing him to treat her that way because of where she was at and what she felt like she needed. And that made me really, really sad. That was, because I mean, I've been in that position before where it's just like, I felt like I was there where I had to put up with things that I shouldn't have to put up with just so that I can feel safe. And so watching it, and it astounds me that this was a movie that was, that a man made. I'm not going to lie. It just, because it's like he knew exactly. He must have, I don't know who he talked to. I don't know the history of this movie, but it felt very real to me. That part of what she's going through.
Yeah, definitely. About, what's his name? Mr. Linden, I think his name is.
Yeah, I just call him that guy, the jerk.
I think that her tolerance for him has a lot to do with like being a coping mechanism so something that I read this film as is, I see it as one of the best portrayals of depression in film, because it is, this sort of other plane of like existence where you're careening through life, but everything's kind of muted or obscured, and you feel like no one can see you or hear you. And, there are different ways that, we cope with that. And so one of them is work, to throw yourself into work and stay busy. So that's one thing that she does. And the other one is like the need to feel validated physically. You know what I mean? Like sex is a coping mechanism. And I think that, she's at times like super confident and independent and like, get the fuck out of here. And then at other times it's like, no, I would like your company right now. And I think that that's part of, she's feeling vulnerable. She needs validation. And, she's like, fine, if I can get it from this guy, then he'll have to do. Because I never feel like she's in true danger. She still seems like she is in control with regard to other people in her life in this time. She does not have control over her own experience of it and her perspective of it.
I think you said it perfectly. You mentioned just a minute ago about things are being muted and everything, and they literally in the movie mute. She's being muted, or the people around her are being muted. There's a lot of situations where she's not being heard. Like she's shouting, she's like begging.
Can anybody hear me?
Exactly. And when she said that, there's a part at the very end, like one of the last times she says that, it broke my heart the way this actress said it. Can anybody hear me? The way she said it, it was just, you could feel and hear the anguish in the way she said it. And I felt it. I really felt it. Because like I said, this time around, this movie hit me a different way. And like you said, it's like sometimes it's true. Sex fills that need that isn't necessarily some kind of like real connection. It's just like, this is the validation I'm going to get right now. And that's what this jerk was there for. And I don't know. I keep thinking this guy played this guy really well. I'm just saying he played this sleazeball really well. And it creeped me out.
The character is just too realistic for me at points. And I think it's why it used to disturb me so much originally when I saw it. And it is not like it doesn't disturb me. It just like, I haven't moved past that. It's just that I think that I'm more like at the age I am now, I think I can handle certain things more differently just because of experience and whatnot. But that creep gets under my skin so bad that I scream like to be of that time and then still be in that time, when I was younger, constantly wanting to be alone and being told, you're such a bitch. You're just, you're just so stuck up all the time. It's exhausting because you don't want to do what everybody else is doing. And then you learn, I've told Dahlia this so many times, you learn to go with the motions of what you need to do. As I think a lot of people experience that. We can relate so right on because you just you go with the motions. You're supposed to be this, you do that. And you feel it to your core. You're just screaming on the inside to be what it is that you want to naturally be and be told constantly that no, you're not that thing.
Well, with her too, like you said, you go with emotions. She wanted company. She wanted to be with somebody. But then she was forced to go a little further than she really wanted because she didn't want the company. She wanted company because she didn't want to be alone. She put up with him and then it went further and it kept going, she was putting up with more than she wanted because we are, for the most part, I won't say all women, but most women, we have to put up with a lot of things that we don't want to deal with. And this was one of those things. She was in a situation. I just want to hang out with you. I want to drink a glass of water. Oh, you're not drinking alcohol. It just goes a little bit more. And it's just like, and that's why like I said, the whole time I'm watching this movie, it's like, this was a dude that made this. I'm sorry. I know I'm being very sexist by saying that, but it's just like, how did he know? How did you know? It's like, because there's a lot going on in this movie, but for some reason, for me watching it, it's really her experience as a woman in this world, just lost, like you said, Kay, before, a passenger in her own life. Does she have control? It's just, This is just, it's so
The-
good. It's so good.
The whole film is like deep within her perspective of the world. I mean, it's very explicitly how she's viewing the world around her and how it's different from what everyone else is seeing. And for her Harvey to really be able to get in the headspace of this woman, it is extremely interesting, especially since he was making a lot of videos that were promoting, the sort of backward stereotypes at the time. So I wonder if that was part of it, like kind of like realizing that the superficial society approved gender roles and attitudes were too much, and so this is his way to do something that felt authentic, and it feels authentic, like an authentic experience of what women have to put up with, and through my interpretation, how depression feels like. There's so many layers to how she's experiencing this that really takes a perceptive and sensitive person and artistic and talented to be able to convey that.
Well, like you said, with the depression too, because I unfortunately suffer from depression, and I have not been able to have my medication lately because it costs money. And when you don't have health insurance, it costs a lot of money. So I definitely feel that throughout this whole movie. She experiences, like you said, a very traumatic event. And then her friends, although we never really see her mourn her friends, I'm sure she is, obviously.
But see, I think that sometimes and it's all, everybody experiences things differently. She seems completely, because even at the point where he's like, one of the men is telling her, "You're not going to stop by and see your parents," and she's like, "No, I'm just going to leave."
Yeah. I forgot about
herself.
that. Yeah.
She's detached herself. Those were obviously friends and people that she cared about. Otherwise, or we don't know exactly, but that kind of gives you a glimpse into where her headspace is at the moment. That they show her staring at that water, and she quickly wants to move on because she wants to separate herself from that event as much as she can. I mean, there's a point that she's literally screaming for help. Literally screaming for help and not getting any. And then the psychologist that she bumps into referring to hysteria, which is always just kind of a trigger word for me. And at the time, mental health is in that decade and before, and still, we're not dealing with our mental health issues, but she is actually trying to seek help and ask for help and not getting it. And that's what I think is so great about the film, because that the misogyny of mental health also, like, is so anti-women for that time, and yet not saying a lot about it. He said so much in the movie. It just
the fact that he even included it in the movie. It could have been a very most
of it in all the movies we see in older movies, you see little drops of the thing that like, if someone said that to me now, you're gonna get hit. But at the time, women were just and move on, laughing about it. Like it was just accepted.
Just sort of survive, just get through. It's easier to do that and get through the altercation or interaction than escalate it, sadly. And this guy, he says something like he's not even a psychologist.
Yeah, I don't think he ever said he's just a doctor or something. Yeah, it's just come to my office.
He's not a psychiatrist. He keeps saying he's not a psychiatrist, but then I'm wondering, then what is he? I don't think I made note of what he actually was. Maybe it's like in that movie where she goes to the veterinarian for help, and she doesn't know he's a veterinarian, and she's talking to him about his problems because she thought he was a psychologist or something. And that's the vibes I get from him, because he doesn't actually say what he's going to be helpful for, but he offers her help, is the strange thing.
Well, he
But
put
then,
himself in a position of authority. I think that's the other thing too. When you hear someone say they're a doctor, you automatically trust them. If there's this man that's telling you he's a doctor, well, then you're definitely going to listen to him. And she pours her heart out basically to him. So he's in this position of authority. And although he was extremely misogynistic he was just belittling her, I think, with some of the things he said. I do appreciate that they included these scenes, these dialogues, because she did have the opportunity to talk, and say things, and even if whatever he was saying was shitty. I think, Kay, you mentioned that with the director writing other videos, industrial videos and all that. I didn't even think of that. That's seeing such defined roles in society at that time. Maybe that did come into this, where he saw like all the things that were wrong because he has to, do these videos or do whatever he needed to do, and then like addresses them in this movie. That's a great point. I that must be it.
I mean, he's made a ton of them, and I think that also speaks to the workmanship. You know what I mean? Like the fact that this is his only feature, and it is so prolific in its artistry. Like it just has, they're very basic locations, but he's able to evoke so much mood and atmosphere out of them, and really maximize what he has. Is a tiny little budget, and I think that his experience as an industrial filmmaker is a big part of that.
I know that we've talked to before, Alma and I, people about horror being cathartic, or creating in general being cathartic. And it's interesting that I just made this kind of connection in my head right now, because he made this movie. It's his only feature. He went on to continue on with his career. His career didn't end, but it just didn't go beyond as far as feature films for this.
Right.
And we were talking about how in this, when her friends died in the accident, she has her near-death experience. She continues on with life. She keeps going. She can't stop. She can't sit still and be like, oh, this is what's going on. She doesn't give herself the opportunity to do whatever it is she needed to do. And then in real life, it's kind of funny because this movie was made, and then he, at his time when he was alive, nothing really came of this feature film. But after he's gone, because he kept working after he's gone, is when this movie kind of, really made its mark on people. So it's kind of interesting how it sort of kind of mirrors his own life after the fact, because, he didn't have the time to sit there and be like, oh, no one's liking my movie. He just, okay, didn't do well. I'm going to keep on working. And he kept on working. So I just found that really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the role of public domain is really key here, because since it was so readily available, so many people saw it, like Night of the Living Dead, that they become these sort of like cultural touchstones that so many people have this shared like reference point of these films. And to me, they're both, I think Carnival of Souls is a lot more emotional, and it's a lot more personal. It's about a personal experience, where when I look at Night of the Living Dead, I see it as, it's very clearly a commentary on society at that time. And they become, these artifacts of our culture.
I think you brought up a really good point about the fact that there's so, you even said that it was like I forget the word you used, but like basically the movie's always been around, you see it in the background of things and everything. So the fact that we get to watch it in many different ways, whether it's in the background, where we're just catching a glimpse here, a clip there. I think with a movie like this, we're able to dissect it and feel it. And it's more we get to think about it more than maybe just a regular movie that we see once and then move on from, because it's always out there. So maybe that's why, you already had an impression. You already had an impression of this movie before you actually watched it all the way through. And it kind of reminded me also too, talking about public domain, It's a Wonderful Life. That's the reason that one, that movie, shot into the fabric of Christmas, of all things. And that movie, I think, is also very, I don't know know why it's a Christmas movie. It's a horror movie. It's depressing. Hello. But yeah, it's just like, so we're able to, these things, we're able to consume them at a more personal level because they're always around us, like you said, even if it's just in the background or, whatever. But oh my gosh,
it's a type of film that, like, if you catch it, like, say, I don't know, you fell asleep on the couch and you wake up and you're like, what the hell is this? What am I watching? And you think like, oh, and then you go back to sleep or whatever. You turn off the TV and you kind of think, oh well, I must have caught a weird moment. And it's like the type of film that when you do watch it in entirety, you're like, oh wait, it still doesn't really make much sense. It's just this. It's just such an experiential film. It's just so purely about how it feels to be in her position.
I think I like the way you mentioned that it's just on, and I think that's how I came upon it. It was just on, and I watched it because I have television going all day. I like to have sound. I cannot be in silence, and so the TV is constantly streaming movies. And originally, it was kind of like an atmosphere that I kind of just was like, I'm going to pay attention to this, and there was so many little things that it's just like I was getting angry, but I don't know why. I was like just too involved in Mary too much. It was just like, why can't I just not pay attention to this film for a second? Because I felt it too much. And now when I watched it like a week ago again, and then a few times just to listen to the music. But I find it comforting almost to have it just be on and listening. And listening to her, and just it's so little, but it's so much. But you can just get lost in it. I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. I can't ever stop talking about the music because it's just so haunting, and the man, Herc Harvey in that.
It's
really
great.
I know, just like popping in out of nowhere, just like, surprise, did you forget about me? Kind of the way I love that he did that as himself, just kind of wide-eyed and popping in every once in a while, just to kind of snap you back into reality.
And he never explains himself. I love it. I love that he doesn't do it. Okay, I'm curious. The ending. What do you think about the ending?
The fact that she was dead the entire time. I mean, there are some like literary examples of that sort of trope, but since Carnival of Souls, it's been used a ton of times. The Nicole Kidman's The Others is a big one. I'm trying to think of some others. There's just, it's become a pretty common trope, but at the time, I imagine it was like, oh my God, wait, what? It actually makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of visual language in this film, and one of them is the water. There are moments where there's a sort of wave that comes over the screen, and she crashes into the water, and so I kind of see that as like the veil between the living and the dead. And she's kind of looking into the abyss. She's kind of looking into, this other realm. And so, it would make sense that it's basically a movie of her processing her death. And, at the very end, she's resistant this entire time, but the movie ends when she just gives in to the situation and starts dancing with the ghoul, and ultimately is consumed by them, very much like zombies.
Yeah, exactly like zombies. One thing, it's like they say, your life flashes before your eyes when you die. Hers continued as she's dying. Like you said perfectly, she continued on with her life. She was for however, actually it's so weird. It's just like it's very emotional even just saying that out loud. Her life continued. She's dying, but there's just a little piece of her that is wanting to continue to go on. And even if it is a weird dream, the last moments of her life, she's still living. She's continuing on trying to, whatever it is, leave this place. And then when it, unfortunately, death comes to us all, and it did for her. And
why did it depress me again? I'm not gonna
But-
die.
But I think it was done very.
big amusement park in the sky.
Yeah, there you go. But I think it was done beautifully. Again, other people may read
didn't-
other things into it, but
no,
that's how
I
I
didn't know.
see it. Yeah.
I felt so like just a big dumb idiot not thinking that she was dead the whole time, because I honestly felt that it was her like in a coma. When we've described it's like a dream-like state, I thought, oh, she drowned, but they brought her back. And this whole time, like I had that vibe the whole time. It's obvious something is wrong. But to me, I honestly thought she was just laying in a hospital bed and was gonna wake up. And she was kind of peering through that veil, the metaphor is just there everywhere. And I honestly just felt like the whole time she was peering into her life and seeing, really, do I really even belong there? And kind of deciding whether or not she wanted to go back to try to be part of that where she didn't ever feel that she belonged, or if she was going to move on. And so the fact that she was dead was like, so she didn't even have a choice. This is just her afterlife. And it does feel like a purgatory because it's not good. It's like Dalia brought up the authority figures, and then who's on the shore looking for her? She has a family, she had friends, but it's this random minister dude, that doctor, right? And there's like another dude, but it's just like, what is, that's who comes to look for. I would hide too. I wouldn't want to be a part of that. The whole dancing with the ghouls scene it's freaking awesome to me. It's just like her acceptance, kind of scared of it, but doing it. But I just, for real, like I just felt like an idiot. It's like she was dead.
Well, there are many interpretations.
Yeah, but it's still enjoyable, even knowing, if you know it already, just to just get in it and feel how you want to feel. It's everybody's different experience.
Yeah, she's running from her death. She went all the way to Utah. But death keeps coming like, hey, hello, we're supposed to do this thing. And she's like, I'm over here being an organ player, whatever. So yeah, but yeah, it is. It's both. I hate to use the word beautiful because it sounds so cliche and so dumb, but it is the ending. I really, it is beautiful because she accepted something, on her own terms, because she's the one that said, okay, all right, ghouls, let's do this, because she was just along for the ride the whole time. But she was able to come to a place where she accepted it. I know Alma and I are fans of Supernatural. I don't know if you watch Kay, but that's a running theme, like in the show, in the series, where you have to come to peace. You have to accept the things. That's why ghosts exist and all that stuff. So she had to come to a place where she accepted what had happened to her. And she did at the end.
Who wouldn't want to be a part of that ghoul dance party?
Well, Herc Harvey has said himself that he sees Mary as a poltergeist.
Ooh.
So he himself is like, so she's basically this ghost who hasn't accepted the fact that she's died yet. And in a lot of depictions of poltergeists, they tend to be angry about that. Poltergeists tend to sort of like thrash around. And, I would think that it's probably like, why can't you see me? I'm going to throw this plate against the wall, which is basically what Mary's doing.
Yeah, and she is kind of peeking into the living world at times, because those people are all alive. And the fact when it makes a lot of sense when they don't hear her, because at points they were only hearing her because that's when she was more focused, like her energy was more focused on trying to find an outfit, like when she was in the department store. And so then when they don't hear it, it makes a lot of sense, because it's like, because she wasn't really there. And then that makes perfect sense.
I guess it doesn't carry through the whole film, but in that scene, there are women. They're the only women in the movie.
Oh my God. I was just going to say that.
Okay, go on.
No, I'm sorry. I was just agreeing with you because that's what I was about to say. It's like it's the women are the only ones that are really hearing and listening. The lady at the boarding house. She's
Oh, great.
she's very so yeah, it's this theme of the women. The men are like not listening to her, not listening to her needs, not listening to what she's saying, what she's putting out there. Please, just leave me alone. I don't want to drink. I don't want to do this. The doctor is like, she's telling him, this is what I'm feeling. You're hysterical, blah, blah. It's just like, but the women are hearing her. The women are listening to what she wants. The women are, even if she's not getting any kind of, results out of it, it's the women are the common theme here as far as like where she's feeling heard, and then the men are where she's not. Okay, Alma, you said you found this on Shudder. It is like we talked about. It is on the public domain, so we're finding it everywhere. Did you say, Kay, that you have this on actual disc?
Yeah, Criterion has a beautiful restoration. It's just really crisp, and but it is available everywhere. You can watch it for free on YouTube, and highly encourage everyone to do so.
Okay,
yeah, that was the little sad part because they didn't get the copyright for it.
I know. That's one of the trivia things we were going to read. Yeah.
Yeah, but but that makes it so great because that's how so many people have been able to find it easily,
and why it is so legendary.
Is there anything really special or anything extra on the DVD though, Kay? That is, or is it just? I don't want to say just a movie.
No, there's a few features. They go into her Carvey's industrial work, and they include some of the videos. There's an audio commentary that's really good. There's a few deleted scenes that were good cuts. They didn't really add anything to the film. In fact, actually, there's something kind of interesting. So one of the reasons they cut those scenes is because when it came out, the distributor already recognized. The distributor was like, "This is an art film. This is a little too smart for we thought we were going to be promoting a horror film." And so at that time, one of the things that they would often do is package the films together as a double feature. And so they were like, "What the hell do we double pair with this film?" But they had to, trim it a little bit for it to work in their format. But I think it works to the film's advantage. What else is on there?
That is so cool.
Yeah, there's some interviews with Herc and Candace Hilligoff, who plays Mary. There's some really cool archival footage. Yeah, it's a really good disc.
That's
but
awesome.
None of that footage was recovered, right, from that lost reel with the extra ghoul scene. Was that ever recovered?
There's that one scene that was lost.
And that is so strange to me too when I find with some of the older movies. What were we watching where it was like something was lost, but then it was found again mysteriously?
It's so that it was like new Romero film that there was just
there was another one that we just covered on the show. But I kept thinking when it said lost that maybe somebody found it and it might be like in the extra footage, the lost reel. But that'd be cool to find that.
Maybe someday we can hope.
Yeah,
lucky person.
Although a big reason why these assets get lost is because it was on film, and it's very difficult to keep film preserved because it's such a sensitive format. So a lot of times it's just they've deteriorated. We can never recover them, which is sad. But there are cases where it was in this closet or whatever. I don't know. There was one film where they found it in peat moss, somehow. So it's always possible, but it's also, public domain, plays a role with this. But in general, film preservation is really important. There are a lot of films that we don't talk about because people before us didn't talk about them. And so it's so great and important about podcasts like yours is that we keep them part of the conversation, and we introduce people to films that they might not seek out on their own. And that's part of, one of the reasons these films do get restored and are available on disc is because they've been recognized as films that are important, have sort of cultural value. And so it's really up to all of us to determine what continues to live on for other people to discover.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to what I wanted to discuss next, more about your work. Now, we did mention earlier that you do work with the George A. Romero Foundation, and speaking of like archival stuff and like preserving, film and all that. And you did this also with this past Salem Horror Fest. Giving a voice to a group of filmmakers that we may not have otherwise, heard of. That's something that I did notice in watching the different films at the festival, that this is not a movie that I think I would have ever heard of if I wasn't there watching, if I didn't have the opportunity to watch all these shorts that you gave us access to, because I think we see a lot of like, this movie, Carnival of Souls, is not a Hollywood feature film. It wasn't a Hollywood feature film. It wasn't out on the, like everything else was at the time. And then we see movies, at these smaller festivals. These aren't movies by Hollywood. And these are filmmakers that I wish that we knew more about, that we could see more from, because we're not seeing them. And yet, just because we don't have these big budgets, we were talking about the budget for this one. He raised $70,000 cash for making, to make this movie. We see lots of smaller filmmakers, and we had the opportunity to meet a few there in Salem, this past September, October. Gosh, don't you? I think it's really awesome that you're a part of being able to give these people a place, a stage, a platform to, hey, say, here's my work. Sometimes it doesn't get seen by, millions of people, but it's getting seen by people who want to see it.
Yes, and hopefully, just advance their careers and doing so. So this past year was our 5th year of doing the festival. So when we started, no one knew who we were, so they didn't know to submit their films to us. So towards the beginning, it was a lot of, I would license repertory stuff. I would license, bigger known, more well-known films. And we did like sort of thematic double features. So we did like Get Out and People Under the Stairs, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 with Cruising, They Live and The Mist, American Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And but as our audience grew, more and more people became aware, and I had always wanted this to be a platform for newer, independent filmmakers. And so, it required us to have a bigger awareness for people to one, know to submit their films, but two, for us to have enough people to watch them. So I was so thrilled that in the last 2 years, we've been able to really increase the amount of independent films that we show to the point now where that's the large majority of what we screen. And thankfully, with the help of the Romero Foundation, we have a fellowship program that is intended to match filmmakers with other filmmakers who are a little further along in their careers to be mentors. And so what I love to see is the filmmakers, first they get their premiere. And, a lot of people who seek them out get to see the film. There are a lot of, bloggers and critics that review it. And then what happens is that sort of buzz gets catches the attention of distributors like Shudder and Dark Sky, and there's a bunch of them. And this is the ecosystem that gets them to the next step. And then once they're on the platform, they reach a wider audience and hopefully are able to seek funding for their next film and, to keep their track going. And then hopefully someday they will become mentors for a whole new class of filmmakers.
Yeah. So what's up with Salem Horror Fest? I remember reading recently you have some news or coming up with that.
Yes. So still TBD. I don't really have much to say yet. I'm hoping the goal is to announce in April the dates of the next one and open submissions.
Because there was you pushed pause on it for a little bit. And I can only imagine because of it was, I saw you working your ass off when we were there, a few months ago. And sometimes I know that when I'm talking when I'm tired, I'm like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to ever do this again. I'm not going to get up in the morning. I'm just like, I'm exhausted. Don't ask me to do shit. So completely understandable when I thought, that I heard you say that you were going to push pause on it for a little bit. But then selfishly, when I saw you again talking about, I think I'm going to go forward. I'm like, yay! But again, that's me being selfish because I'm not the one actually doing any work about, with it. But yeah, so I mean, you are doing something really cool and awesome. And I know I'm gonna stop gushing. I promise. But I just really think it's like, I feel like someone like me gets to be seen and heard. I honestly feel like a freaking weirdo sometimes, and not in a bad way. Sometimes bad, but not,
Weird is good.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like that's why I feel like coming into this horror community at first, when me and Alma first started, it was a little bit like, oh my gosh, look, do we fit in anywhere? I mean, we don't always have to fit in everywhere, but sometimes it's like when you think you found your people, it's like, I don't really exactly fit here. But the more that we get involved and meet people and all that, we're starting to see like, there's a big community, and then you can find your little table in the lunchroom, and I feel like, and that being able to be part of like, Kay's table, I can come over here and we can sit and we can like have lunch together. And then we can also like, oh, okay, I'm going to go snack and have my soda over here. That's what I love about this community, because you're not always going to be, you're going to find somebody. You're going to find your group is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like at your table, I feel like I'm welcome. And I think it's really cool that you're creating. I feel like you're really creating that space for people. And even when we feel like we have to censor ourselves, and we don't. And I'm thankful that you don't censor yourself, because that gave me the opportunity to find you. But even when we feel like we have to censor ourselves, it's nice to know that if I'm being quiet, then you're out there speaking up for me, or for my child, or for, that person, that new filmmaker that's, in junior high right now and using their iPhone to make that. I love that. I absolutely love that. And you're creating those opportunities for people. And that's really awesome.
No, thank you so much. One of our taglines, something that I like to say is, what good is having a voice if you can't scream? And, it's part of that is because it's a cathartic thing to do. You're full of tension and stress to just scream and let it out. But also, like you were alluding to, when others they can't speak out because it might jeopardize their job or their relationship with someone or whatever the case may be, it's still important to feel like whatever it is you want to scream is still being said. And like I said, I realized that I was in a position, I'm very fortunate and I have a lot of privilege. And so I was like, I'm going to use that. I'm going to take this opportunity to give voice to that, because there are very few consequences that I can suffer for that. And for the sake of the organization, it's also like a really good signal to attract the kind of people that I want to attract. It's like-minded people who want to feel like they're being seen and heard. And I feel so fortunate that we have an amazing audience a group of people. We have our own community
Mhm.
of just really diverse voices and film fans. It's a really beautiful thing, and so I'm so flattered and grateful that you're part of it.
Well, I also want to find out what else does Kay have going on this year. 2022 is supposed to be a big year. Ugh, I'm already exhausted. We're only in March.
I know, my goodness. So I'm producing now. I am working with filmmakers that we premiered. I'm very excited to be working on a film with Alice Mckay, and she's a 17-year-old trans filmmaker from Australia who is now working on her second feature.
That's awesome.
Making us all look bad.
Yeah.
So talented, and her debut feature film, So Vam, was our jury winner, and so other people also recognized her talent, and I'm really excited to push queer voices as much as I can. It's still like a huge gap in this space in the horror community. There's a little bit here and there. Representation is starting to improve, but I really think that we need the queer talent behind the camera to propel it forward. And so, Alice is, I think, going to be a big part of that movement moving forward. But also the filmmakers of Death Drop Gorgeous, which we premiered in 2020, they have a new film coming out called St. Drogo. And so I'm doing everything I can to help support that film, and a couple others as well. But it's really exciting for me to have been able to share their first films with the world, and being able to witness that talent and wanting to be like, ensure that they keep they keep creating. It's exciting to be in a position where I can help that along.
Yeah, you amplify the voices, share it and lift up. And that's why I love that you mentioned the mentorship, because it does begin a lot behind the camera in the making of films, because the little peppering, random scattering isn't enough in so many marginalized communities, and it's not enough, and it should be way further along. It's 2022, and I'm never in a room or in public where there isn't diversity, and so why isn't it more on the screen? It needs to be represented, and that's why we started looking more behind the camera, who's making the movies, and having conversations with people, because the diversity behind the camera starts to make its appearance in front of the camera, and then it'll be everywhere. It should be common. It should be just a regular part of all the film, because we are consuming it. We're here watching it. We want to share it, and we want to be seen too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have stories to tell. So many stories that haven't been told yet because none of people have been welcome to the table. And I'm telling everyone that don't wait for someone to invite you. Just take space. Just take it, if
Yes.
however you can, because it is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unsure of how exactly to just go out there and take that space, Kay's out here. She'll show you the way. She'll help you along.
I will. I'll do whatever I can.
Yes. So, Kay, how can people follow along with everything that you have going on? A lot, like we read earlier in your bio, so much. How can people follow along? Either socials, website, whatever it is. Plug yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, Salem Horror Fest is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and just search for Salem Horror Fest. And then I'm talking shit on Twitter at Video Coven. I apologize in advance.
I love
Never.
it.
Yeah, no, I'm not really apologetic at all. But
My sister does that. She'll constantly say, I'm sorry for what I just said. I'm like, don't be. I'm not as good with words, so I'm not afraid to say I let my sister do the talking most of the time because I just agree. And I always tell her, don't apologize. But I think it's just something that we're used to saying after we say something. I'm sorry I said that thing. Oh, I'm sorry already. I did a thing. And we never are, though. just
we
say
shouldn't be.
that.
Yeah.
No, and we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So I will make sure that I will put all the links to follow along with everything that you have going on, Kay, in our show notes. And again, thank you so very much for taking time out of your day to talk with us about this movie, about yourself, about just, it's been a great conversation. And I hope that we can do this again soon. I say soon. I'm already putting myself on your calendar. Look at that. It's like you don't have enough going on already. I'm going to put myself on your calendar.
It was such a pleasure to be part of your show and to just be able to see you again.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Alma, how can people follow along and what we got going on? It's not as interesting as what Kay's got going on, but it's
No.
it's a little interesting. I like to think it's a little entertaining.
It's a little.
And it's important.
Thank you. You can visit our website at nightmaremoviepodcast.com. Our email is the same, nightmaremoviepodcast@gmail.com. Our Instagram is at Nightmare Movie Podcast. Our Twitter is at Nightmare on 5th. That's Nightmare on 5th. And thank you always for listening. And if you want to do extra supporting, Dahlia has our Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee information.
Yeah, patreon.com/Nightmare Movie Podcast. Or if you just want to buy me more coffee, look at this. I finished it. I had a French press full of coffee and I finished it. So if you want to buy me more coffee, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/nightmarepod. Well, or maybe not. Maybe you don't want to buy me more coffee because I'm a little too much already as it is. But anyways, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Kay. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Nightmare on 5th Street, a horror movie podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Also, leave a review or share what movie you would like us to discuss. As always, thank you for listening.